I'm 80 years old, and I think I attribute everything to genes. Just good genes.
Longevity is not for sissies.
The human body is a powerful thing, can take incredible abuse and still, you might say, come up smiling. In our case, come up living.
That's George Donnell. He's one of 4 San Diego seniors you're going to meet tonight. They are part of a very special population. Hello everyone, I'm JOANNE FARYON. Welcome to tonight's Envision special, The Aging Code. We're going to explore the secret to a long and healthy life, a secret that may be locked away in our genetic code. San Diego scientists are close to figuring out why our bodies age and why old age is the leading cause of disease. Tonight, you'll meet those scientists and you will get to know some people who are remarkably healthy for their age. They are the subjects of the first genomic study of its kind in the world. Let's start with George Donnell. Before I tell you how old George is, watch him ride his bike. And now, get a closer look at his face. There's barely a wrinkle. George Donnell is 82 years old.
I got a few aches and pains in the hands particularly. A little bit of knee thing, not very much, but basically I've pretty much been the same.
Just how George has been able to stay pretty much the same all his life is the subject of a nationwide study into the genetics of the so-called welderly. That is, people 80 years and older with no history of chronic disease.
So every morning and night I do 80 to 100 push-ups too, just to kind of toss off the day, just to make me think that maybe I am not as old as my birth certificate tells me I am.
Scientists believe if they can figure out what's keeping George this healthy, this long, they could prevent age-related disease in the general population, and that could have a dramatic effect on how long we live. A baby born today has an average life expectancy of 77 years. That same baby born 100 years ago would have only lived to be 50. The science of aging is advancing so rapidly these days, this baby, in her lifetime, could nearly double her expected lifespan. Scientists now know that aging healthy and living long is not just determined by how we live, it's programmed in our genetic code.
So, in 50 years, will we see the first person living to 150? I think it's on the scope. I don't know if it will happen, but I think the possibility is definitely there.
Sarah? I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
You look great.
Thanks.
83-year-old Bee is the newest enrollee into the welderly study.
So you're okay with the stairs, I imagine?
Of course.
She's a triathlete, cycling more than 20 miles routinely and swimming several mornings a week in the ocean. Bee's blood is taken and her DNA is going to be studied. Those in the welderly study must be 80 years or older with no history of major or chronic disease such as cancer or diabetes. This study is the brainchild of Dr. Eric Topol, Chief of Genomic Medicine at Scripps Health. Topol is focusing his work on healthy people, old healthy people, and their genes. He plans to enroll 1,000 people into the study. So far, 600 have contributed blood and saliva samples.
What we know already is that people in the welderly group, they have bad, quote, bad genes. They have genes for Alzheimer's and heart attack, cancer, and other illnesses, but they don't get these diseases.
Topol believes people who live disease-free so long must have some kind of genetic protection.
And we've had some that are in their late 90s who still smoke. So this is not just a lifestyle story. There's genetic, what we call heritability, that accounts for this. And so if we can understand what are the genes that are the modifiers that titrate the risk, that cancel out this susceptibility to diseases, wouldn't that be exciting?
We spent time with 3 of the subjects enrolled in the welderly study. You've already met George Donnell. There's also Dr. Forrest Adams and Natalie Nestad. Natalie is 80 years old. and she smokes.
When I get older, losing my hair, many years from now.
I don't have anything of particular notes to tell you. I did mention that my grandparents came from Lithuania and that they, as I say, they were strong, maybe healthy people. My dad was a very healthy man. And that's obviously, what's happened to me. I've just got their genes.
You smoke?
Yep.
Yeah, 80 years I think she's been smoking.
No, I haven't smoked for 80 years.
Nearly.
65 maybe, something. 61 years possibly. But I'm not a chain smoker. I mean, I have my 10, 12 a day.
Natalie, her husband Stanley, and 4 of their 5 children emigrated from South Africa to the United States more than 20 years ago after Stanley retired. Photos of their past life show a big family who went to the beach often and traveled. There's Natalie with her thick brown hair that stayed thick and brown until Natalie was 75.
It just fell out. I had thick, lovely, beautiful hair, and it just, day by day, it came out in clumps. I was virtually bald.
But it grew back, thick and curly and gray. She's still not sure why. Natalie also has good vision. She still drives, sometimes to the casino, she bakes, and she travels.
I'm going to Israel in June. I'm going to Alaska in July. I'm hoping to go to South Africa next year to my daughter. And travel is a great thing. I think that's what sort of is very important as you get older.
She's been married to Stanley for 59 years.
But we are definitely the kind of people who you would say opposites attract, because there is nothing that we both like the same. Food, where we're going to go on holiday, it's a problem.
Natalie says she does not live a particularly healthy lifestyle. Her exercise is marching up and down these stairs. She eats whatever she wants.
We really are going to home buffet for dinner tonight.
Just the 2 of us, it doesn't pay to cook. So.
And they make the best meatloaf. They really make a wonderful meatloaf.
And of course, there's the smoking. Why not stop, though? Maybe you'll live 20 more years instead of 10 more.
I wouldn't like to live 20 more years. I couldn't imagine being 100. I would hate to be in a wheelchair or hate to be in one of these assisted living facilities. No, I wouldn't like another 20 years.
She would, however, want another 10 healthy years, but she believes that will not be up to her. It will be up to her genes.
Oh, I was at Los Angeles airport once, at the station, standing in line to catch the train, and there were 2 young girls in front of me, and I asked if I could lean on their trolley. They had all their luggage on a trolley. And they said to me, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm 79. And they said, "How come you look so good?" I said, "I think it must be my genes." And they obviously didn't know what genes, and they sort of looked like as if it was denims or something, that kind of thing. And they don't know what genes are. They think you're stupid. It must be my genes, something.
I'm sure that I will have a number of genes that protect me from all sorts of infectious diseases.
Dr. Forrest Adams will be 90 years old in a few months. He doesn't smoke, rarely drinks, and eats a healthy diet. And as you can see, he exercises.
Oh boy.
But he believes lifestyle has little to do with his good health.
I've arrived at the conclusion that the majority, and by majority I mean 90 to 95% of man's medical illnesses are determined genetically. In a sense, we're predestined to get certain things, like Alzheimer's, for instance, like Parkinson's disease, heart disease.
Forrest is a descendant of John Quincy Adams, 6th president, a man who lived to be 81, a great feat back in the 1800s. Forrest's grandparents and great-grandparents all lived into their 80s and 90s. Spend some time with Dr. Forrest Adams, and it's apparent he is a man of science.
This is just a lab manual on stem cells.
A pediatrician, cardiologist, and researcher, he has spent a lifetime solving problems. But it sounds like you could go back into the lab today, that this is what excites you.
I would if somebody asked me.
In the meantime, he's not waiting around for an invitation. He's been researching his new project.
And I want them to get my stem cells and put it into liquid nitrogen and then save those.
Adams believes so much in the healing power of his genes, he's arranging to have his stem cells harvested and frozen while he's still alive. If you want your stem cells frozen, I would imagine then you want this long life for other people.
Exactly.
Why do you want this long life for other people?
No, I don't say that they need to live to be 100 or 120. Longevity is not for sissies. So, you know, as one deteriorates, what you perceived you were when you were 20 is no longer that way. I mean, all you got to do is look at the commercials on televisions about women's health things, and they say everything they're selling for the face and the skin, they're talking about 20-year-olds. They're not talking about 50-year-olds or 70-year-old women. So that part you don't look forward to. But on the other hand, for people who are getting things that possibly could be prevented or cured, probably in the case of stem cells, could be prevented.
So I just grind these things up, sesame, flax, grind them up in here into a powder.
82-year-old George Dinnell isn't so convinced he can rely only on his good genes. If you didn't do any of this, if you didn't exercise, if you didn't eat this way, do you think you'd look and feel the way you look and feel right now?
Absolutely not.
He eats chicken and greens for breakfast. He makes his own roughage concoction with these grains, blends a smoothie for lunch, and eats oatmeal for dinner. He doesn't smoke, rarely drinks, and does vigorous exercise every day.
Because I used to think, George, if you do all these things right, you're probably going to be healthy and happy and active right up to the day you die. And I'm beginning to have to realize that this is not going to be this way, that the body ages and the hands get sore and you can't do all the things with as much strength and quickness and coordination as you used to do. And so aging is a problem for me in the sense that I expect it to be perfect forever and then croak. It is not going to be that way.
But George may come as close to perfect as he can. He still sits in his rocker like a young man and moves around his kitchen like a teenager showing off his latest gadget, his Cuisinart. George is right, though. Eventually, age catches up to everyone. Our bodies go through a typical aging process. Forget about wrinkles. Think about the systems in your body. Your heart, your digestive system, your brain, they all lose function over time. Let's take a look at the normal aging process. For men, risk of heart disease begins at 45. For women, 55. 40% of deaths in people 65 and older are heart-related, making age the biggest risk factor for heart disease. 80% of cancer is diagnosed at 55 or older. And once you reach 65, you are now at risk for Alzheimer's. And every 5 years, that risk doubles. By age 75, you have a 1 in 3 chance of losing your vision to macular degeneration, and you'll almost surely have hearing loss. Add to that a long list of age-related ailments like arthritis and osteoporosis. Your skin will also get thinner, your mouth drier, even your digestive system slows down. In what decade do we start seeing these age-related or age-onset diseases? When do they start happening? Is it 40s, 50s?
It's in your 40s.
Dr. Andrew Dillin is a researcher at SALK Institute.
15 years ago, it was argued that it was all environmental, and there was very little genetics involved. So now that we've actually found genes that we can manipulate and make an animal live twice as long, is really open up the door that there are genes that play a role in it.
Dillin uses a tiny worm to study the aging process. He believes if scientists can control aging, they can control the onset of age-related disease.
Yeah, I have no interest to make people live longer. That's not, I want to have them live healthier a longer period of time. And so that's the ultimate goal, is to not increase lifespan, but increase health span.
But the two may go hand in hand. At least that's what Dillin's research has shown so far. This is video of some of Dillin's experimental worms. Researchers injected some of the worms with a protein associated with Alzheimer's disease. They were also able to reverse the effects of the disease. In other words, cure the worm of Alzheimer's. But the cure had a side effect. It doubled the lifespan of the worm.
We don't want to increase the bad years of your lifespan. You know, we want to increase the youthful period of your lifespan. And ideally, we would like to not actually increase lifespan at all, but just the youthful period. So when you were 90, you felt like you were when you were 60, but you're not going to live to be 150 years old. You're going to live to be 100 years old. I mean, that would be the ultimate goal. But so far, we haven't been able to uncouple that. So every time we increase the health span of an organism, we end up increasing its lifespan as well. So we haven't figured out how to uncouple those two events. So it may be a side effect that comes from this research, is that you might actually end up increasing lifespan by 50 years and health span at the same time.
This not only the Alzheimer's, the ApoE3, you don't have it, this is also for long life. This is the most important of the whole scan right there. You are so lucky. You'll be around a long time.
Okay.
Back in Eric Topol's lab, Topol's learned his daughter Sarah, who is also a nurse working on his study, doesn't have the Alzheimer's gene, something he believes may be linked to the longevity gene. And while there is excitement at the prospect of his daughter living a long life, Topol says the real goal of his research is to increase health span and not lifespan.
Well, what if we start to learn what keeps people healthy? And if we could learn that, wouldn't that be a much better way to get the information we need to enable health over the years ahead?
Topol believes environment does influence how one ages, but he's excited at the prospect of discovering a genetic mutation that buys some people protection against age-onset disease. He says if he can find that, researchers can eventually inoculate the rest of the population.
It could be a vaccine. It could be a pill.
If you know of genes that control aging, and they would be targets of pharmaceuticals, you can't imagine that somewhere down the road, someone's going to develop a drug that will possibly change the aging process.
Topol's lab will begin sequencing the genes of the hundreds of elderly subjects in the next several months. But so far, he's been able to put together a body type of the average person enrolled in the study. Here she is, female, short, a slower than average metabolism, and lean.
The short stature story, that's really interesting because across all species, dogs, elephants, all species, the shorter that the species is, the more long life and overall health that person is endowed with. The other one that was a surprise so far, the pattern, is about thyroid disease. And Sarah Topol has noted that there's been many of these people in the elderly, as she's been accruing them, that have a history of a low thyroid. And so the question is, does that protect people? Does that slow down the process? Is there something inborn? That's something we hadn't anticipated. Should we all be walking around a little hypothyroid, make us healthier?
I'm happy. Yeah. I have found love of my life at 76.
That's great.
You know, and that makes me happy.
There's something else, not so scientific, that Sarah Topol has noticed about the people in the study. They have a positive attitude toward life. They want to live.
Well, my friends are gone, and my hair is gray.
According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the so-called oldest old, people over 75, are among the fastest growing populations in the world. In 2020, American baby boomers will add to this population explosion as they begin to turn 75.
I said to Hank Williams, how lonely does it get?
they will consume proportionally greater amounts of healthcare than younger populations. The Census Bureau warns the rapid growth of this population segment will force nations to grapple with issues of long-term care, institutionalization, and pension reform.
In the Tower of Song.
You know, if they could add 50 years to my life in my 40s, I'd really be happy. If they add it in my 80s, I'm less convinced.
Lawrence HINMAN is a philosophy professor at the University of San Diego. He says prolonging a healthy life would be a wonderful thing, provided society was prepared for a growing older population.
But I think one of the things that's important from an ethical point of view is that you've got to realize that this has to come as part of a much larger package, because otherwise we're going to have disaster. I mean, think about think about Social Security. You know, I mean, you think it's in trouble now. You know, imagine what it would be like if people retire at their current age and then draw Social Security for the next 60 years.
There's something else we must consider. Will a society in search of eternal youth begin to value age? And what happens when you have the longevity gene, but those around you don't?
When you get to be 50 or 60, you're a discard.
Forrest Adams is an atheist. For him, there is no religious comfort in death.
So do you think about death?
Do I think about it all the time? Yeah. But one of the offshoots of that is I have no fear of dying. But I think one of the reasons that people have such strong religious beliefs is because they're fearful of dying, and the religion helps to provide a cushion.
You think about it all the time. Is it because you're nearly 90 that it makes you think about
well, it? I would say it's more because most of my friends are dying. and I now have a folder of the obituaries from the people that I worked with who have since died.
Yeah, I think about dying a lot. And I don't have any idea what it's going to be. You know, probably if I knew, I'd commit suicide. I don't know. That's all I can say about that, yeah.
Do you believe in an afterlife?
Do I don't know. I don't think so. I think when you're dead, you're dead. You mean, do you come back as something else, or? No, I'm not spiritually inclined that I expect someone to come and visit me in my dreams or something. You know, you dream about your parents or an incident or something like that, but it's not something that you read books where you think, okay, someone's looking after you or over you or something. I don't think so.
I believe in an afterlife only that I'm going to have my ashes thrown into the Pacific Ocean, and I think it's marvelous. I love the thought of becoming a dolphin or a fish or a whale or a piece of seaweed or a little phytoplankton floating in the Pacific Ocean. But in the afterlife of the Christian sense, absolutely not. No.
I know my mother, who last year passed away, and she was almost 99. And she loved life, but she was ready. And her husband, my dad, had died 10 years earlier. All her siblings had died more than a decade before that. She came from a family of 7 other kids. All her friends from high school, from the neighborhood, had passed on, and there was a loneliness.
Most people, when you poll them, they're not interested in living to 110. They want to live to whatever age, but be healthy all the way through. So this concept of welderly, everybody wants to be in the welderly club. That's what we're really after, is that if we can keep people who otherwise were very highly likely to develop a particular condition, disease, if we can keep that in check, well, it may not make their life expectancy everybody 100 plus, but it may increase their quality of life, and certainly if it was a serious condition, it could increase their expectancy in some matter of time.
How long do you want to live?
As long as it's going the way it is right now, indefinitely.
Forrest Adams, a man of science, knows exactly how he will live forever, not in an abstract afterlife, but in the here and now. DNA, locked into each one of our chromosomes, is remarkably resilient. In fact, scientists uncovered the DNA of a prehistoric beetle trapped in amber more than 120 million years old.
In a very philosophical sense, my chromosomes are going to continue, the electrons are going to continue, and that's going to be me. It's not going to be you, it's not going to be anybody else. And that's the way you live forever.
The Welderly study is still accepting volunteers. If you are 80 or older and healthy, they want your DNA. You can get more information about the study by going to our website at kpbs.org/envision. For KPBS and Envision San Diego, I'm JOANNE FARYON. Thanks for watching.